All right, it's That's Enough Out of You podcast with Bill and Sean. And Sean, how you doing today?
Good, buddy. What's going on?
It is a decent day in February, although there is some snow on the ground, but we're doing all right. Kind of a busy weekend as usual, but enough time to get a podcast in.
Always, buddy.
Always. So I don't know. What do you think? What's today? Actually, I watched a little bit of spring training baseball today. So
yeah, getting into the groove for baseball season, buddy. It'll be here before you know it. The weather will start to break for good, and we'll be right in the heart of that rivalry, buddy.
That's right.
We'll be going at it.
Although for me, baseball doesn't really start until after hockey's over. So
yeah,
depending on
me, I'm a baseball guy and I'm a college football guy, and we're going to talk about that tonight, buddy. That's our subject.
All right. Yeah, we're going to talk about something called name, image, and likeness, which is a relatively new, I don't know, what would you call it? A new program or a new
it's a new policy.
And
we're going to talk NIL, and we're going to talk the larger state of college football too, because where it's going and where it's headed. And I got some strong feelings on this because, it's one of my favorite sports. I made it known I'm not a big NFL guy. I like college football because it's not the NFL. And these guys that are trying to make it like the NFL are really getting on my nerves. And we're going to call them out tonight, buddy.
All right.
That's what we do.
Let's get into it.
Okay, buddy. So NIL. So it really started, Bill, in the state of California, 2019. They were the first state to adopt it. And then there was a Supreme Court decision in a specific case that ruled against the amateur rule, where amateur collegiate athletes could not be paid. And then after that, the NCAA, who we're going to talk a lot about tonight because they got my wrath coming, they issued the NIL policy, which permits student athletes to earn compensation on their name, image, and likeness. All right, Bill. And the thing is, NIL should be the best thing that happened to college football, to be honest with you. And because of the NCAA, who I feel is a gutless organization that's never, ever had the student athletes back and ever had the interest of the student athletes, they turn this into the Wild West. And then you have school presidents that are looking the other way. And, there's all these illegal deals going on. And the next thing you know, it's just complete chaos, and it's hurting the game. It's hurting the kids and the people who love the game. Just the direction of college football right now is an absolute disaster. And, the Massachusetts governor is going to be taking over the NCAA in March. And he talked some big game, buddy. I mean, he said that, he's going to fix this problem. And I think specifically he said by 2024, he's going to fix the NIL problem. Now, that's big words. And I hope he does it. But from following college football my entire life, I have no confidence in the NCAA. None, zero.
So let's take a couple steps back, though, Sean, because this is something that up until, what was it, 2021, when this policy first came into effect, right?
Right.
The NCAA, and this isn't just college football, this is all NCAA.
It is all sports. But let's face it, Bill, most schools, college football pays for just about everything else.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of schools. It's a huge moneymaker.
Totally agree with that. Although we are seeing some of the athletes in other sports, particularly the women's sports, doing pretty well with this. But let's just take a step back. So for years and years and years and years and years, the NCAA, all of these major colleges and universities were making millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, basically off of the backs of these student athletes.
Correct.
And they were not getting, they weren't seeing, not only were they not seeing a dime from it.
Well, they were getting a full ride scholarship though, Bill. You got to count that for something. I mean, some of these schools you're talking about, $100,000. I mean, they're getting a full ride for free. So that's something, but you're right. They're not getting compensated for playing the game.
I mean, it's compared to what the schools are making.
Sure.
It's basically, they're not seeing, and they're there for a purpose. They're there for a reason.
Sure.
To win games, football, basketball, whatever the case may be, whatever sport they're in, they're brought in. They're not brought in, for their contributions to the academic society of that school. They're brought in to win football games. Most of these players,
Right.
So there's a purpose to it. So if they get drafted, some of them make it to the NFL. Some of them end up
very small percentage, Bill. Very small percentage
get into the NFL.
And when they do, Bill, the career average is like 5-6 years in the NFL.
And a lot of these guys, if they don't know how to handle their money, if they don't have good people around them.
Well, that's what I'm going to get into tonight, buddy.
All right. So again, my point is that this had been a one-sided system for a very, very, very long time.
Sure.
And now the Supreme Court kind of stepped in to balance the scale. So now the athlete is able to make some money. They're able to get some compensation.
Right. And I have zero problem with that.
Right.
Zero
Absolutely. Problem. It's the way it should be.
Well, let me explain, Bill, this is the perfect model of the way NIL is supposed to work. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me use you as an example, Bill. So your son, Jeremy, let's say he's the high school senior. When he's a high school senior, let's just say he's the top quarterback prospect in the whole country, Bill. Okay. And he's recruited by every school. So every school in the nation, from California to Florida to up north, they all descend on Archbald, Pennsylvania, and they're recruiting Jeremy. So here's how it should work. Now I'm going to use Notre Dame as example because that's the team I follow the most. I know the most about what's going on there in the program. I have the most examples from there. So let's just say Marcus Freeman comes to Archibald, sits down with you, Mary Alice, and Jeremy, and he was recruiting you guys, and he gives you his spiel. The Notre Dame, the 4 for 40 is what they call it. 4 years, Jeremy goes to Notre Dame, and then that degree is going to be worth 40 years after the NFL if he makes it, because he's going to have a network at Notre Dame and a $30 billion endowment. That's only like Yale and Harvard have more, and MIT maybe have a bigger endowment than that. And he's going to have this network that puts more people working for NASA, more people working on Wall Street. And he's going to have this whole education, to fall back on if when football ends, because let's face it, it's only going to last. If it lasts a decade for him, that's a great career.
All right. Exactly.
So what happens is then you would ask him, say, well, what about NIL, coach? And his response should be, well, look, Jeremy's in high school. I can't specifically talk about our NIL program, but you could ask current players when you go on an official visit and ask them about their deals. Because one of the things, Bill, that I think misconception is that some of the schools and we know schools that are cheating and they're handing out illegal high deals to high school players and stuff. But a lot of these big schools like Notre Dame, the players at Notre Dame, they're doing it the right way. They're making a ton of money because Notre Dame is still, and I don't care what the haters say. I don't care what ESPN says and all these other haters. Notre Dame is still the biggest brand in college football. And the players are making a ton of money. I know for a fact that the long snapper at Notre Dame, who's a walk-on, who finally was awarded a scholarship, he has a 6-figure NIL deal, Bill. So he's a walk-on, Bill. These guys are making a lot of money. Okay, so
can we talk for a second, Sean, about?
Well, I'm going to go into all of that, Bill.
All right,
but go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, what are they allowed to?
Well, I'm going to explain that. I'm going to go over the whole, the perfect scenario. I'm going to go into. Okay. So, they're making a ton of money on that. So the next thing is, you would talk to the players that are there enrolled in the school, and they would tell you the contracts they have in NIL and what they're making and everything. Explain to Jeremy. And there's also most colleges, most of these big universities, they have a liaison set up that could talk now about NIL opportunities and stuff. So they would explain to you that, we are going to have people once Jeremy's enrolled, if he chooses Notre Dame, we have a program set up to help him understand what's the tax consequences on this. How do you invest this money? Because as a serious investor that I consider myself to be, Bill, somebody that was mentored by my uncle, and I understand diversifying and where to put money and stuff. I understand that as much as you research and as much as you think you know what you're doing, it could still go sideways. And if you don't know what you're doing, I guarantee it's going to go sideways, because somebody could hand you, especially an 18-year-old kid, Bill, you hand him $1 million. I mean, he's buying big ticket items. He doesn't know how to invest it. He doesn't understand the
Right.
tax consequences with that. That money's gone.
Right.
That
Yep.
money's not going to last.
Right.
So you have this liaison to explain to you everything, how to invest it, how to put it in mutual funds, maybe put in annuities, you know, what's the tax consequences of it, and give you the opportunities. What's your best NIL opportunities out there? So let's just say this now. So Jeremy decides, okay, I'm going to go to Notre Dame, and he enrolls at Notre Dame. Now, once he's enrolled there, here's where the businessman comes in. So let's just say I own a shipping tycoon business. I have this huge national business, international, let's say. And I come to you and I say, through the liaison, I say, I'm going to give you a $3 million NIL deal. And you could still take deals from other businesses, Bill. But I'm saying, I'm going to give you $3 million. I'm going to give 2.5 to you, but I'm going to give another 500,000 of that. Let's say 500K of that is going to go to my favorite charity, which is, let's just say homeless veterans. Okay. And the rest is yours to do with what you want. But here's what you're going to have to do contractually to get this money. It's not just, I'm not just handing you this money. You're going to have to promote my business, whether that's, you know, wear the shirt or whatever, maybe do a commercial, go with me somewhere in public at a speaking event or something. And it's all going to be in the contract. And also say every 2 weeks, you're going to come to Jeremy's going to come to my favorite charity, homeless veterans. We're going to do this big dinner for all these homeless vets. And Jeremy's going to be there with his Notre Dame football jersey. He's going to talk to all the vets. He's going to serve them food. He's going to take pictures with them. We're going to have this whole event. And this is what Jeremy's getting to earn his money, this $2.5 million NIL deal. You understand?
Right.
So that's the perfect scenario, Bill. So then you sit down with the liaison and you say, well, this is where we're going to put the money. They'll get you with an investor, a financial planner, and Jeremy set up. So if something happens, like say his football career doesn't pan out the way you want it to, he still has this money to fall back on. Mm-hmm. And he could also make other NIL deals with other businesses, Bill. Okay, so he could make a ton of money while he's in college. And then if he makes it to the NFL, great. If he doesn't, he has this money from the NIL, and he also has an unbelievable degree and a network to set him up with a good job down the line. Right. So Jeremy is set for life. That's the perfect scenario.
Yep.
Now let's get to the Wild West. And listen, I don't want to sit here and you know, we know who's cheating. We know what teams are cheating, but you know, people will be up in arms if you accuse them. So I'm going to say what the teams that the evidence shows that they're cheating. It's kind of like, I know Alan Dulles masterminded Kennedy, but you got to be careful when you say it, you know. But the teams that the evidence shows they're cheating, like Texas A&M, you know, Oregon, that awful team in Southern Cal, those teams. So one of those teams say, this is the bad scenario, Bill. This is what's not supposed to happen. So let's just say Texas A&M or A&M, they show up and they're recruiting Jeremy. So they come to you, Bill. Jeremy's still a high school senior now, right? So this is before his senior year. Let's just say the summer before. Texas A&M comes to you, and we're just using them as an example, you know, and they say, Bill, you get your son to come to our school, okay? And we're going to give you a cash bag, $1 million, whatever. And then when Jeremy comes and he enrolls, we'll give him another bag. And then, you know, there'll be another one after that. So let's just say you take that deal, Bill. Okay. Now this is totally against NIL policy. It's not supposed to be an enticement for high school students to choose a school. It's supposed to be for enrolled college students. Okay. But let's just say you take that, Bill. Okay. So you get to Texas A&M and all of a sudden you get the first bag. Second bag is late. When it finally comes, it's a little light. Then the other bag doesn't come. All of a sudden, you're like, what's going on here? So the way the transfer portal is set up, you and Jeremy are frustrated. Say, you know what? I'm transferring out of the school. And in the meantime, you have, say, Oregon coming to you and say, hey, here's a cash bag. We'll give it to you right now. You want $2 million? Here's $2 million. Get Jeremy to transfer to Oregon. So Jeremy transfers to Oregon. And then eventually their promises don't keep. And Jeremy transfers again. All of a sudden, his career is on a path of disaster, Bill. And if something, God forbid, happens that he doesn't pan out his career or he gets injured, what does he have to fall back on? Because nobody set him up how to use this money.
Right.
Number one. Number two is he went going to these football factories that the degree really means nothing.
Yeah.
So where's he going for a job? What's his career path after that? Where's the interest of the kids? There's nothing. And why did I use Texas A&M as an example? Well, they have a video, Bill, of Texas A&M coaches, assistant coaches, and they're taking around a bunch of high school recruits. And the coach says right on the video, he says, see those guys sitting up in the stands there with the suits on, and they were alumni. He says, you guys could just name their price. You name your price to them to come here, whatever you want. Tell them what you want, and you come here. Totally illegal, Bill. And it's on tape. And what does the NCAA do about it? Nothing. What the NCAA always does, nothing. And this is the stuff that's totally aggravating me, Bill. It's like the grown-ups in the room have screwed this up, monumentally screwed this up. Like, this should be enforced by the NCAA. It should be enforced. And it could be solved easily, Bill.
Yeah.
It could be solved easily, because let me tell you something. Once you step in, Bill, and you hit these guys hard, and listen, don't take away wins. That's the dumbest thing. When the NCAA does that, that means nothing. The game is won on the field. Like, I don't care that USC lost all those games because Reggie Bush, all that stuff that happened, they took those games. That means nothing to me, Bill. They beat Notre Dame on the field, the Bush push game. They beat them. I mean, It doesn't matter. They take the win. That means nothing to me. So the NCAA, when they step in with that stupid thing and they take wins away from a team, you are doing nothing. If you want to really stop this, hit them in the pocketbook. Do to them what you did to SMU back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Because, Bill, when SMU got the death penalty, SMU for a short time period there in the early 80s, about a 4 or 5 year span, they were a national power when they had Craig James and Eric Dickinson and the Pony Express. And when they hit them with the death penalty, that program went downhill. I mean, absolutely destroyed the program. And it took 25 years, Bill, for the program to have any stability. Okay. And today it's a decent program, but it's in a small conference. It's never going to be what it was for that short time period ever again. And the thing is, if you hit one of these teams that you know is cheating and you nail them hard and you hit them in the pocketbook, take their revenue away for 1 year, see what happens, Bill, because a lot of these teams, a lot of these presidents that are looking the other way and letting this stuff happen, it'll stop quick, Billy.
Right. Yeah. Now, Sean, you mentioned the transfer portal, and that's something that's relatively new also.
It is, because it used to be, Bill, that you could transfer, like if you transferred to another school, you would have to sit out that season. Okay. And that changed. And I thought that was a little bit, I didn't like that rule, to be honest with you.
Right.
But now it's like you could transfer multiple times, and I don't like that either. You should be allowed one transfer, okay, and be able to play that season, but you shouldn't be allowed multiple transfers. And this is where the whole thing comes in. And now I know they're looking into that. I've read some stuff. I don't know what the rule is going to be by the time the season comes around, but that's something they have to fix.
Yeah,
they have to fix that problem, Bill, because it's bigger. This is really hurting college football. And the other thing that's hurting college football, Bill, is these teams, this creation of these super conferences, and teams like Oklahoma and Texas, going to the SEC, and USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten. Like, how bizarre is that, Bill? How does that make any sense geographically?
Yeah, well, it doesn't anyway. Yeah, I mean,
it's all about money, though, Bill.
Right? That's all it. I mean, when you look at all the, like, for instance, in basketball, the Big East teams that went to the ACC, that makes absolutely no sense.
Bill. Do you think some kid who's playing college baseball for USC and signed up to play in beautiful Southern California? Well, the weather's not great right now, but beautiful Southern California, he wants to play a game against Rutgers in New Jersey,
right,
in late February or March. I mean, come on, Bill.
Yeah.
So
just
Go
to get
ahead.
back to the transfer portal for a second. Now
Right.
that was created and again, with good intentions.
Sure.
It created because basically they wanted to give the player some recourse, because
Sure.
what
They should
was
have it.
happening
Right.
is,
Right.
they would get recruited by a coach. They were signing letters of intent to go and play for this coach,
Right.
and then the coach gets
Coach would
gets a
leave.
better job and leaves them in
Yeah.
the dust. Or they find themselves in a situation where they're like third or fourth on the depth chart. They know
Right.
that they're never going to get an opportunity to start, so they transfer to another school. That was really the purpose.
Right. But letting these guys transfer like multiple times, Bill, and it's ridiculous. And then it's like a kid's in the portal and he already committed to another school. Well, was the school talking to him beforehand? Because if you talk to a kid while he's signed and enrolled at another school, that's illegal according to the NCAA. But again, what does the NCAA ever do, Bill? All they do is they take wins away, which means nothing. That is the dumbest thing.
Right.
They could step in and solve this problem. And I'll tell you another thing, Bill, I'm going to go off the rails a little bit here. You might have to get me back on track. But another problem with college football is ESPN. ESPN has destroyed college football. I mean, and I used to love ESPN when I was a kid, Bill, but I don't watch it anymore unless Notre Dame and the Red Sox are on.
Yeah.
I can't watch it. And the one day I'm flicking through the channels and they had a segment on there about Notre Dame. So I stopped and I'm listening. And of course they had an awful take on everything and all their information was incorrect. It was just complete nonsense. And then they start talking about NIL and they have one of the guys on, and I forget which circus clown it was that was talking, but he says, the teams that are doing the best work with NIL are Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Oregon, and USC. And I'm thinking, my God, is this guy that clueless? I mean, you just named the 4 teams that are accused of cheating the most. And you're saying they're doing the best with NIL. Yeah, because they're breaking every policy and every rule that's on the books.
Right. Yeah.
And this is how disconnected ESPN is with reality, Bill. This is how they're, and ESPN has an agenda to create these super conferences and they want a expansion of the playoffs. And listen, why are you expanding the playoffs when you can't even get a Final Four that's competitive? And now you're going to expand it to 12 teams. You're going to give Nick Saban a home game. It's bad enough you're giving them a month to prepare. Nobody could beat them. Mm-hmm. And now you're going to give them a home game. And you're going to expand the playoff. You're going to put 12 teams in the playoffs to make extra money. And you're going to destroy a bowl system that's been in place traditionally forever. You know what I mean? Like just the direction. ESPN is absolutely, and I'll tell you, I'd rather watch a game on Fox, a college football game. I don't know if you're familiar with Gus Johnson and Joe Clapp, but those guys are tremendous.
Yeah, they are.
They are tremendous. And CBS does a tremendous job.
Yeah.
With college football. No, I don't follow much NFL. You know that. Hopkins told me that Fox don't do a great job with the NFL, in his opinion. So I don't know what they do with the NFL, but for college, I think they're fantastic.
I disagree. I think Fox does a pretty good job with the NFL. I think
I wouldn't know, but I know they're great in college, Billy.
Yeah.
And it's to the point that I can't listen to ESPN. Like ESPN is so bad. I usually mute the TV. Like, how does Chris Fowler still have a job at ESPN? I don't understand. That guy is horrible.
Yeah, I agree.
He is absolutely, he must be related to somebody at Disney, ABC, or ESPN, because I don't know how that man has a job, because he is god awful. He really is, Bill.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating. And the thing is, Bill, ESPN, like when you compare, like, let's just go for a second here. ESPN compared to Fox. Like you take A-Rod, okay? A-Rod comes on to Fox Sports for the baseball, okay, but postseason, and he's on there with Big Papi and Frank Thomas, the Big Hurt. And I got to tell you, Bill, and you know my feelings on A-Rod. I have no love for that guy,
right?
But he's actually likable, dare I say, on Fox. He's actually, those 3 guys together are funny, they're informative, and they're very good. And I actually like listening to 3 of them. When A-Rod was on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, it was an absolute disaster, Bill. It was a disaster. And I remember the one game on a Sunday night. It was a huge game, Bill. And it was Red Sox and Yankees. They were fighting for first place. And it was late in the game, big situation. I think the Yanks had a couple guys on. And I'm wondering who's in the pen and this and that. And what does ESPN do? They bring J-Lo out, right, in the booth with A-Rod. and it's A-Rod's birthday. So I don't know, Bill, maybe you know when his birthday is. It was like late July, early August. It was late summer. Huge game.
Mhm.
And they bring J-Lo out singing happy birthday to him.
Yeah, I remember that.
In the middle of a game, Bill. I'm thinking, my phone, Yankee fans are blowing my phone up. I'm getting frustrated. My TV's ready to get tossed out on the street. And I'm wondering who's in the pen. What's the manager doing? And instead of talking about the game, they got J-Lo singing happy birthday.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what ESPN has become. And this is what College Game Day has become.
Yeah. No,
College Game Day. What's that?
I agree with you. I think there are some things ESPN does okay. I think the Manning cast that they do on Monday.
Yeah,
night.
well, the 30 for 30 is good, but that's
30 for
usually
30.
independent filmmakers. That's really not,
So, I mean, again, they do some things right. They do some things terrible. I agree with you. I think for the most part, ESPN promotes ESPN.
Well, Bill, the College Game Day, like, why do I care about they bring in these pickers? Who's picking the game? They bring in like Snoop Dogg is picking games. They bring in some country singer. Like, I don't care what those guys got to say, Bill. Give me somebody who knows the game inside out. And give me some content like Fox is doing, like CBS is doing.
Right.
And that's the frustrating thing. But, I think the whole situation of college football, Bill, right now, it's an absolute mess.
So, Sean, let me just jump in here for a second. So,
okay,
with NIL, there are certain things that players are allowed to make money on, and there's a list here, and this isn't the definitive list, but there's some things here that this is what essentially it was written up in the policy and the law. So they're allowed to appear in ads. They're allowed to sell ads on social media. They're allowed to sell merchandise. They can start their own sports camps and businesses. They can sell signed memorabilia. They can make, appearances for money. They can make speeches for money, and they can sign autographs for money. I think a lot of times what you'll find is that a lot of these guys end up, getting paid by like a local car dealership.
Yeah, exactly. Like a local business to step in, right? And then, but when they tie it to charity, Bill, that makes it even better because everybody wins. The community wins. They learn responsibility. I mean, it's just NIL should be a great thing, but it's and listen, I'm not against any of those things. These kids making money, that great, but it's not supposed to be an enticement for high school students to come to college.
So how do we fix it? How do you think it gets fixed?
Just like I said, Bill, the cheaters, the teams that are cheating, hit them hard.
Yeah.
And I mean, hit them with find the investigation, get the evidence, and then nail them. And don't do something stupid like take wins away from them, because that means nothing.
Right.
Give them the death penalty. And I'm serious. Hit them hard. Give them a year off from football. And you know what? You're going to hurt a lot of people, but you know what? It has to be done because the presidents have to understand at these schools that they got to be responsible. And it's just, and listen, Bill, there's a lot of teams that are doing it right. I mentioned Notre Dame is doing it right. All of the Big Ten, from what I understand, they're doing it the right way. Clemson is doing it the right way. Whatever you think of Dabo Swinney down there in Clemson, I know a lot of people don't like him because he's always belly aching to the referees. But let me tell you something. He's a heck of a ball coach, and he's running the program down there. He's doing NIL the right way. And, there's a lot of schools around the country that are doing it the right way, Bill. And they have the student athlete, first in mind, and they're doing this right. And it's just the schools that are doing it wrong are doing it so badly and so blatant, Bill. It's like the Wild West.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly think, and maybe I'm wrong in this, Bill, but I think more teams are doing it right than doing it wrong.
Oh, I'm sure.
I just think that the teams that are doing it wrong are just, it's so blatant, Bill.
Yeah.
It's just so blatant. I mean, I don't know how we are in time, but I wanted to go in there's a couple stories I wanted to go into. Do we have time to go into a story?
Well, yeah, let's do one, and then we're going to have to wrap up.
Okay. So we have Peyton Bowen was a top recruit in the country. Okay. He was a safety recruit. And he's from Texas, and he was one of the top safeties. It was either him or this kid, Caleb Downs, who went to Alabama. They were the two top safeties. And he was committed to Notre Dame for 11 months, Bill. Okay. And what happened was Oklahoma was always the threat to flipping him because his girlfriend went to Oklahoma, and there was a quarterback prospect there by the name of Jackson Arnold, who was a top quarterback prospect that Notre Dame wasn't too high on. They were higher on other guys, and he kind of had a vendetta against them after that. and he kind of was always trying to poach his good buddy Peyton Bowen back to Oklahoma. So 11 months go by. He's committed to Notre Dame, and the class at Notre Dame was really tight, Bill. All the kids, the 20-some commits, and the parents were all tight. They were all communicating by Zoom, talking to each other, and they all became really close. What happens, Bill, is a couple days before the early signing period, Peyton Bowen gets an offer. Oregon makes their move. $2 million under the table NIL deal. You know, that's what was out there. Okay. Oregon wasn't even recruiting him that hard. Like, I don't even know if he officially visited Oregon at this point. So then what happens is Oklahoma matches that. Okay. They upped it. I think they said 2.5. So now you have the kid has to defend himself on Twitter. So he's out there saying, oh, this stuff isn't true. Cause everybody, you know what a mess social media is now, Bill. It's a cesspool. Everybody's putting this out there, and the kids out there trying to defend themselves saying, oh, you know, these offers that they're saying, people are saying it's not true. And one thing I want to say, Bill, if you're a grown man and you're on Twitter and you're attacking a teenager and his mother on Twitter, you know, you're the problem. You got to look in the mirror, because I see this all the time, Bill, and it just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, what happens is, you know, Oklahoma and Oregon both make their move, and then Notre Dame has to counter this. So Marcus Freeman fights to try to get in to the house, and they didn't even want to let him in. And let me explain this, Bill. The parents were separated or something, but they weren't together. And the father was always looking for an NIL deal. He was looking for an upfront NIL deal. And the mother was always looking for that Notre Dame education. So she was pro ND. The father wasn't. So finally, Freeman, who I think is a rock star. I mean, I'm so high on Marcus Freeman, despite that stupid losses to Marshall and Stanford. I think he's on the right tracks. And you could tell by Nick Saban poaching the program all the time. He's doing something right. But he gets in the house and he talks to the parents and convinces them, hey, look at that 4 for 40, just like I talked earlier, Bill. And he convinces Peyton Bowen to stick with Notre Dame. So he gets on a Zoom call after this with all the kids and the parents, and he tells them, I'm coming to Notre Dame. So the next day they have this set up at the school, because, you know, all these kids got to commit now. It's got to be a big thing at the high school and everything. And he sets it up, and they have the 3 hats on the table, Bill. They have Oregon, Oklahoma, Notre Dame. And the parents are on either side of them. The father's sitting there with a big grin on his face, never changed. The mother's sitting over there, and she's absolutely disgusted, Bill, because a half hour before he ghosted everybody. He wasn't talking to any of the Notre Dame players. He wasn't talking to Freeman. And everybody's like, oh boy, here we go with the drama. And I'm watching this, Bill, and I could just see that the mother's body language. This should be the happiest day of her life. And I could see she's disgusted. I said, this kid ain't picking Notre Dame. I could see it right now. So what happens is he actually picks up the Notre Dame hat. Okay. And you see the mother's expression change. She just was elated. She just started to get all excited, and she was like shocked. And then he throws the hat down and he puts on the Oregon hat. And the dad's sitting over there smiling the whole time. And the crowd, or the audience, just went quiet, Bill. They didn't know what to say. And the drama got even worse after this. So then he didn't even send in his letter of intent into Oregon. He didn't sign his letter. So they're waiting. And then there's rumors all over again. Social media is all blowing up that the kid's begging to come back. He's calling Freeman, calling Notre Dame. He wants to go to Notre Dame. And he's calling them. And, you know, it's speculation what happened after that. But, you know, you could put 2 and 2 together, Bill. Freeman probably went back to the team and asked them, do we want to let this guy back in after all this, after he lied to our face? And they probably said no. So Notre Dame didn't, you know, they didn't offer after that. So anyway, he ends up not signing with Oregon. He ends up signing with Oklahoma. And now there's more drama. I just read something else. There's something going on. I don't know what the heck. It's like, this is a never ending story. But Bill, this is just one story of what's going around the country, and how these teams are using NIL as an enticement for high school athletes.
Yeah.
And that's not what it should be. And it's got to be policed. And it's, if the NCAA, if the Massachusetts governor is going to step in and fix this, great. But if he's not, then the presidents of these schools are going to have to take responsibility, because who else is going to do it, Bill?
Yeah.
Because at some point there's going to be a breaking point, Bill.
Yeah, and it sounds like we're getting close to there anyway. So Charlie Baker is the guy
Charlie Baker, yeah,
he's the guy who's going to be taking over next
and
month.
I wish him well. I hope he could do it.
I hope so. But Sean, it does sound like this is also a way to kind of weed out these guys that probably wouldn't be good team guys anyway. Probably.
Well, sure, Bill. I mean, letting that kid back, it would have been a cancer.
Oh, it would have been terrible.
But what? Part of me feels bad for the kid, Bill. And I know, listen, a lot of these kids when they were 18, they were drafted to Vietnam. In the 60s. I know, they got to take some responsibility, but this kid's getting pulled in a million different directions. He's getting bad advice.
Yeah.
And who's got the interest of these kids? It certainly isn't the presidents of some of these schools. It certainly isn't the NCAA, and it definitely isn't ESPN. So, and
in a lot of cases, it's not the parents either. The parents are, parents are looking for the quick buck too. Yeah.
They are, but you know what, Bill? I mean, sometimes, they got financial situations and they need the quick money and everything. But the thing is, that's where the NCAA's got to stop it. They got to step in and say, look, this is illegal. You can't, this policy's got to be enforced.
Yep.
And that, I mean, we could go on here forever, Bill. This is something that, college football, it's got to be fixed, buddy, because I'm getting frustrated. And, one thing I want to just end with, Bill, is because I'm getting a lot of questions from, my fellow Notre Dame fans. They want to know the state of the program. And I think, we got the right guy. I think Marcus Freeman's a rock star. Mm-hmm. And I think Notre Dame, despite the losses, some bad losses last year, but he's a first-year coach. He's a pup. He's 36 years old.
Right.
You could see when Nick Saban starts poaching your program, and Nick Saban went in and stole Keon Keeley, the top defensive recruit from us. He stole Tommy Reese, offensive coordinator. When Alabama's looking at your program, but you're doing something right, because usually it's the other way around. Everybody's trying to become like Alabama.
Right. Yeah.
And the thing is, Freeman, I think, Brian Kelly was like, he won 10 games almost every year, but there was this gap. He could not get past the elite teams, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States. And I think sometimes, Bill, it's like you're going up a hill, right? And you pass everybody off, but there's 3-4 cars at the top you can't get to. Sometimes you got to back it up a little bit,
right?
And get a little bit of a head start and then go up. And I think Freeman's on the right track. I think he's a dynamic recruiter. And in spite of all this nonsense with NIL, all these cheaters that are out there, he's doing a great job. He's addressing the issues, because the one issue that Brian Kelly had that he never addressed was he couldn't close the gap at quarterback. And Bill, you have to have a 5-star quarterback, a stud quarterback at college.
Yep. And
Freeman has addressed that. He got the kid from Wake Forest. He got CJ Carr coming in 24, who's one of the best films I've ever seen as a high school quarterback. I mean, Freeman has addressed the problem. He knows what the problem is, and I think he closed the gap. I think even though he won 9 games and Brian Kelly won 10 for all those years, I think we're closer now to Alabama and Georgia than we've been at any time under Brian Kelly. And I know that's hard for Notre Dame fans to understand, because a lot of them listen to that garbage that's spilled on ESPN, which I wish people would just stop listening to that channel, Bill. I really do, because I have nothing good to say about ESPN.
Yeah.
And that's my rant for the day, buddy.
All right. Well, time will tell. We will see. All right, Sean. Well, this is a great episode. I think a lot of good information, a lot of stuff that people probably didn't know. And
let's get it fixed, Billy.
Yeah, I agree. I think, as we said, this Charlie Baker, he's got his work cut out for him. That's for sure. I hope he comes in and
he does, but there's a way to fix it, Billy. There's a way to fix it.
Yep. I hope he comes in and does that and doesn't do what every NCAA president has done in the past, which is
nothing.
Collective.
Nothing. Take some wins away, Bill. Take a season of wins away from the team, because that'll hurt.
Yep.
That'll stop everything. Stupid.
All right, Sean. Good show. Good
right,
topic.
Buddy.
Really good.
All right, Billy. That's enough out of you, NCAA. I've heard enough.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night.